So, why are creative influencers broke? Money. If followers automatically created income, every artist with 100,000 followers would be rich, but they're not. And some artists with tiny audiences are quietly earning a full-time living. So the number most artists are chasing probably isn't the number that actually matters. For years, artists have been told the same thing: grow your following, post consistently, and reach more people. Get more likes. And once the audience is big enough, the money will eventually follow. But that isn't a business strategy. It's simply hope dressed as a strategy, because followers do not automatically become buyers. They do not automatically become collectors, and they definitely do not automatically become clients. Followers are attention. That's all they are. And attention can be valuable, but only when you know how to turn it into something else. That is where most artists get stuck. They spend years trying to build an audience without ever asking what that audience is actually here for. They chase tens of thousands of followers, then 20,000, then 50,000, but there's no product. There's no offer, there's no email list, no clear service, no pathway from discovering the artwork to actually buying something. So they end up with an audience that watches, likes, maybe, and then scrolls away. And that is, I guess, the hard truth that most artists don't really want to hear. An audience that watches you is not necessarily an audience that will pay you. So quickly, before I go any further, if you are trying to build an art career that does not depend entirely on social media or algorithms, I wrote a 300 plus page book called The Profitable Artist. It covers everything from pricing, positioning, clients, income streams, and the business systems behind making money from your creative work. It's linked below. So now back to the problem. One reason follower count is so misleading is that not every follower has the same value. Now just imagine two artists. The first artist has 100,000 followers. Most of the followers are other artists. They like tutorials, they like process videos, they enjoy looking at the artwork, but they're not collectors. They're not art directors, they're not musicians looking for cover artwork, they're not publishers, they're not clients. The second artist has about, say, 3,000 followers, but those followers include gallery owners, repeat buyers, musicians, authors, creative directors, and people who have already purchased work or worked with that artist. So who has the stronger business? It's the second artist, of course. The audience is smaller, but the commercial relevance is far higher. That is the difference between audience size and audience quality. And most artists never make that distinction. They assume that more people must always equal better. But then tens of thousands of people who will never buy from you can be less valuable than 100 people who genuinely trust you and your work. You do not need the biggest audience, you need the right audience. That sounds simple, but it changes how you create your content. Instead of asking, how do I get more followers? You should start asking yourself, who do I want following me? Those are completely different questions. Now, if you want music clients, bands, your art and content, it needs to make sense to musicians and labels and managers. If you want gallery collectors, your presentation needs to speak to collectors. And if you want publishing work, your portfolio needs to show publishers exactly where your artwork fits. Most artists, they produce content for other artists because other artists are easy to attract. They understand the work, they comment, they share, they appreciate the techniques, but appreciation is not the same as purchasing intent. And that leads to another uncomfortable truth. A lot of artists have accidentally built audiences of peers rather than buyers. That isn't necessarily bad, but other artists can create a community, referrals, and opportunities. But if your goal is income, you need to understand what your audience is actually capable of buying. Otherwise, you can end up with high engagement but very little revenue. This is why likes are such a dangerous metric to measure. Likes feel like proof, they feel like demand, but likes cost nothing. Buying artwork requires money. Hiring an illustrator requires trust. Commissioning a project requires confidence. Now, those are much bigger commitments. A person can like your artwork in half a second. That does not mean they trust you enough to spend £100, £500, or £2,000. Trust takes longer, and that comes from consistency, professional presentation, clear communication, proof that you understand a client's needs, showing that you can deliver. And that is why some artists with smaller audiences outperform artists with huge audiences. They built trust, not just reach. Another issue is that many artists never give people a clear next step. They post the artwork, people admire it, but then what? Where do they go? Where can they buy? And what service do you offer? How do they contact you? These are the questions that you need to ask. What happens after they click your profile? If the answer is unclear, the audience disappears. You need to buy a pathway. That could be something along the lines of a piece of content that leads to a free resource. The free resource could lead to an email list. The email list leads to a print release, a book, commission, offer, or a service. Or someone sees a piece of client work, they visit your website, they immediately understand what you offer as a professional illustrator, designer. They see relevant examples, they contact you. That is the pathway that they need to follow. Most artists, they just don't have one. They have posts, and posts, they're just not a system. This is also why constantly chasing viral content can be a trap. A viral post might bring 50,000 new viewers, but if those viewers came because of one joke, one trend, or one unrelated piece of fan art, they may have no interest in really anything else that you do. You gained reach, but you didn't necessarily gain a useful audience. Virtually feels like success because the numbers are visible, but the real question should be, what happens after the views? Did people join your mailing list? Did someone inquire about a commission? Did you sell anything? Did the right client discover you? Did people remember your name even? If nothing happens, the viral post that you made may have created attention without actually creating any value. And that is why I think artists need to stop treating follower count as the main scoreboard. It measures visibility, it doesn't measure business health. Better metrics would be how many people have bought from you more than once, how many inquiries have you received, how many clients returned, how many people are on your mailing list, how many relationships have you built from galleries, art directors, or buyers, how much revenue does your audience actually generate. Those metrics, they're less glamorous, but you can't really boast about them as easily, but they matter far, far more. In my own career, some of the biggest opportunities have not come from a post going viral, they've come from relationships that I've built, repeat clients, gallery contracts, creative directors, musicians who've hired me again and again, people who recommend me to somebody else. That kind of growth is a lot slower, but it's far, far more durable and valuable. A follower can disappear tomorrow. A strong professional relationship can lead to years of work. So what would you do instead of obsessing over a follower count? First, define who you actually want to attract, not people who just like art. That is far too vague. Do you want collectors? Do you want bands? Do you want authors? Do you want publishers? Do you want game studios, creative agencies? You need to be specific in what you want. Second, make your value obvious. A potential client should not have to work out what you do. Show the context. Put the art on an album cover. Show it on merchandise, on t-shirts. Show the poster in a real environment on a billboard. Next, you need to build something that you own. That includes an email list, a website, a customer database, a collector's list. Social media platforms can change within the blink of an eye. An audience you can contact directly is far more secure. Next, you need to create a clear offer. Do you sell prints? Do you take commissions? Do you design covers? Do you offer creative direction? You need to make that offer visible. And then finally, focus on relationships rather than the reach themselves. Reply properly. Follow up. Stay in contact with past clients, deliver good work consistently, and make people's lives easier, because a reliable artist with a small network can build a stronger business than a popular artist with no system at all. That is the central point of this video. Followers do not make you money. The systems, relationships, and offers around those followers make you money. You do not need to stop growing your audience. You just need to basically stop believing that growth alone will solve the problem, because it simply won't. A larger audience can amplify a good business, but it cannot replace one. And if you are serious about building systems behind your art, that's exactly why I wrote The Profitable Artist. It is over 300 pages focused on helping artists price their work, attract opportunities, build income streams, and turn attention into a sustainable creative career. The link is in the description below. Before you go, I want to know your honest answer. Would you rather have 100,000 passive followers, or 1,000 people who generally buy, hire, and support the work that you do? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.